Hello, and welcome to the Cheap Seats. My name is Mpho and I've got Thabang and Mpho as well with me, discussing the DSTV Premiership and the results that are happening this weekend. Please do join us, and by following our YouTube channel at One World Sports Radio, you can follow me at Mpho Moroka, and also I am T-Man 27 on Twitter, and we're here to discuss everything that's happening with PSL. We're going to recap the weekend fixtures. We're going to discuss the Soweto Giants, and I call Giants because the Soweto Giants are not just only Pirates and Chiefs. The Moroka Swallows is there as well, whatever version of Moroka Swallows that it is, but they're still a giant. They've been a very long institution in Soweto for a very long time. So we're going to be discussing that. And then we're going to be discussing as well the two new boys, TTM and TS Galaxy. They found themselves at the bottom of the log midway through at the beginning of the week, but somehow TS Galaxy have managed their way out, but we're still going to talk about them. So please do join us, share, like, and subscribe on Twitter and on Facebook also, and on Instagram. So remember just to follow us on these platforms. You can interact with us on these platforms. We've got cricket coming up next week. We've got the Cheap Seats, which is a Premier League show. We've also got an FPL show as well. We're live on YouTube. We're active on Instagram. We're active on Twitter and on Facebook. And we do live commentary of cricket, rugby, and soccer. If you want to sponsor our broadcast, we can do that. It's a watch along, which is pretty great. But let me introduce Thabang and get him to let us know what he thought of what's going on in the PSL right now. T-Man, how are you doing?
Great, thanks. And yourself, Mpho? I'm great, thanks. And yourself, Mpho?
That's good, T-Man. So let's take a recap of the weekend's fixtures. I've got the fixtures right here, the results right here. I'm going to add them in. The weekend, we saw Golden Arrows and TTM. Arrows were still remaining unbeaten. SuperSport and Mamelodi Sundowns, the game we were looking forward to watch, coming out in a 0-0 draw, which is kind of expected. We've also got TS Galaxy and Chipper TS Galaxy losing to a relegation rival, which is something that they didn't want, and one of the reasons why we're going to talk about them. Swallows continuing and closing the gap against Sundowns with that 1-0 win over Moroka. Cape Town City Kaizer Chiefs actually winning and holding on in the end there against Cape Town City. Really good 2-1 win. Black Leopards winning 2-0 against Orlando Pirates. Probably one of the best games Leopards have played this season. And Amazulu playing Maritzburg United. We're going to go into the midweek fixtures, but these ones, T-Man, what did you like? What results surprised you? Let's chat. What did you see?
I really enjoyed the football this weekend. The highlight of the football was, as you remember last week, we had a focus on Kaizer Chiefs, but they've really been struggling as of late. And going into the weekend, they went into 14th spot. If I recall, they were on 7 points going into the weekend, and they really needed some good results. Gavin Hunt was under immense pressure, as we spoke about last week, and the Kaizer Chiefs were finally managed to turn their fortunes around. One thing that I love about the Kaizer Chiefs squad at the moment, is that they're not relying on their old guard, they're not relying on their old players, it's the youngsters that are coming to the fore. We saw goals from Happy Mashiane. He's always been a very, very good youngster for Kaizer Chiefs. He was a star who was introduced a couple of seasons ago. Unfortunately, picked up an injury which derailed his progress. But he's finally found his form as of late. And also the young starlet at the moment, Nkosimpile Ngobo, who scored both in this game against Cape Town City, and he also scored against TTM yesterday. Nkosimpile Ngobo scored goals there. And that's what I love about the Kaizer Chiefs side, is that it's the thing that we spoke about since the beginning of the season. The youngsters are really, really finding their form. And Gavin Hunt is really, really showing the faith in youngsters. And it's starting to show dividends at the moment for Kaizer Chiefs. But let me just quickly go into the other fixtures. TTM, starting to struggle at the moment. They're really struggling at the moment. Mandla Ngiyasi is doing a really, really good job there in KZN at the Mzansi Stadium. Princess Magogo Stadium there for Golden Arrows, and they're really, really finding their form at the moment, and it showed them where they were able to beat TTM 1-0. The big fixture of the weekend was the Tshwane Derby, SuperSport United up against Mamelodi Sundowns. SuperSport also have recently found a rich vein of form, but weren't able to translate that into results against Mamelodi Sundowns and Mpho. Mamelodi Sundowns and Mpho, the breaks are starting to turn and Mpho. They were starting to run away with the league title and Mpho. But as of late, Mpho, they're really struggling at the moment with 2 draws and Mpho. Both against SuperSport United in the Tshwane Derby and also in yesterday in the game against Bloemfontein Celtic.
Yes, we're going to go through into tomorrow into the weekends of the midweek's fixtures. So let's do that now. So Sundowns joined to Bloem Celtic, as you mentioned. Chiefs winning 3-0 against TTM, which was a statement for them, as well as Stellenbosch and Moroka United. Moroka coming out with a very good victory. Moroka's somehow find a way to win games when nobody's watching and have them just keep pushing up that PSL log. Pirates drawing against Golden Arrows. It's a tough one for them, and we'll talk about them midway through the show. Moroka Swallows drawing to Chippa United. They missed their chance to go top there, and it was really tough on Moroka Swallows. SuperSport United drawing again, another top 4 team drawing. And then obviously Maritzburg United losing badly to fellow relegation strugglers TS Galaxy, who seem to just have everything go their way in this game. And then Cape Town City, after obviously losing to Kaizer Chiefs, bouncing back with a loss with Black Leopards. T-Man, I'll look at this Cape Town City win as some sort of a trick to the PSL. And I'm going to go back to probably what happened in the NBA at the back end of the season, because I know you watched the NBA too. And the one trick to the Lakers season last year was that whenever they lost a game, they were the eventual champions. Whenever they lost a game, they made sure they never made it 2 games in a row. They always made sure that they won the game after they've lost. And this is what's keeping Cape Town City. And that is something that I've noticed from Cape Town City, is that they came back with a response, which is something missing to some of the teams in the bottom half of the league, where when you lose a game, you need to make sure that you come back, and that's something that always will keep Cape Town City alive. But looking obviously at Kaizer Chiefs, 3 wins in a row on the spin, they're looking very good. Now they're at 7th on the log, which is also very good. But another one is obviously TS Galaxy. They have a new coach. Of the guys at the bottom half, Maritzburg United got a good new coach. TS Galaxy have a new coach. Chippa have a new coach. But it seems like Owen Dagama is now turning the ship around, or maybe it's just one of those situations in the PSL where sometimes you'll win a game, but the truth will say we'll see the truth as the season goes on.
And you've said it quite rightly, for that for the PSL, it's almost, especially in the middle tier teams, it's very, very difficult to say. You need a good stretch of results, and that's when you can actually say. Many teams are really blowing hot and cold at the moment, as you said, Cape Town City, they've got a really, really good array of players. Thabo Nadada, one of their starlets in the middle of the park, they've got Travis Graham, who used to play for Ajax Cape Town, they've got a really, really good crop of players, but one thing that you've said quite well, is that they as a team, they're regarded as one of your standout top 8 teams, they won't let negative results go consistently against them, and that's what we're seeing in the PSL at the moment, is that the teams which are struggling at the moment, those are the teams at the bottom end of the table. TTM, for example, they've only got 1 point out of their last 5 games. So out of a place where they had a chance to get 15 points, but they only managed to get 1 point, and that's why they're at the bottom end of the table. TTM, I was reading an article earlier this afternoon. It's so unfortunate, that just before we went into this set of fixtures, both on the weekend and yesterday, the teams that are at the bottom of the table, it was TTM and it was TS Galaxy. I sent you a message yesterday, and I said, but what do these teams have in common? These are the 2 teams that bought their statuses from Highlands Park, that is TS Galaxy, and from Bidvest, that is TTM. TTM, they've really, really. But one thing that we've seen from TTM is that they've got the players, they've got great individual players, but they don't have the team, they don't have the chemistry, they don't have the. It shows that there is a team that has assembled quick, fast at the beginning of the season, and I urge you, look at the Diski Challenge log as well, they just challenged team also. 0 points, 0 points, and they're also at the bottom of the table. So, and that's one thing that you really need in this PSL. Let's look at Kaizer Chiefs, for example. They were 14 last week, when we discussed, when we were analyzing the results for this next crop of fixtures. But look at what they've done over the past few games. Well, this is what we spoke of last week. In the PSL, where teams are so evenly matched. If you can put 3 good sets of results together, you can actually go from 14 to 7th spot. I looked at the log just before we went on to the show. If Kaizer Chiefs can win the next game, it takes them onto 4th spot from 14. And that just shows that if you in the PSL, if you can just get a good set of results together, you can really turn your fortunes around. So many teams are evenly matched, but that the teams at the top aren't winning consistently. Look at Mamelodi Sundowns. They've drawn their last 2 games. They've hit almost a block at the moment in their last 2 fixtures. Drawing 2. Swallows nearly caught them yesterday, but unfortunately Chipper came back. It would have been so great to see Swallows at the top of the table, with them being a team that comes from the NFD.
So, but T-Man, so looking at the 2 teams, obviously the big reason why we're talking about this topic, and we're going to talk about it now. We're going to talk about it now with TTM and TS Galaxy, because they've paid for their status, right? You need a couple of seasons in the PSL in order for you to get return on investment, and that's the reason why we it feels like we talk about TTM every week, but there's always something that they give us. It's like the Trump White House. Every day there's a press conference, some story is going to come out. But from a TS Galaxy perspective, who Tim Sugazi's run a club before, they've won the Nedbank Cup. Their only crime was that they just couldn't get a good team together to get promotion, but they've decided to go the quicker route and try see if they can't get the gains of the broadcast, the higher broadcast money in the PSL. But T-Man, looking at the log, obviously TTM right now is last. They've got 9 points. TS Galaxy is in 14th. They've got 11 points. Now, obviously, they win 2 games. They're in the top 10. Yes, we're a third of the way through, but there's some things that you're seeing. What are the things that you're seeing, T-Man, that they need to change in order for them to put pressure on all those around them? Because remember, all the teams around them have been through this before. They know how to get themselves. Like Chipper's done this for years. He's done this for seasons, and he knows how to ride the wave. Well, they know how to ride the wave. Maritzburg United have sat for some seasons at the bottom, trying to hang around, and they've gotten out. So what does TS Galaxy and TTM need to? What do they? Yes, obviously winning games is fine, but what are the small things that they need to do organizationally on the field? I know you spoke about them playing like a team. What do they need to do to get themselves out of this hole?
Well, number one is the back room. The behind the scenes needs to be intact. It needs to be a team culture. The team needs to come together during this time. Players need to, organization, teams need to make sure that the basics are met. Your players are happy. Your players are motivated. Chopping and changing of coaches as well does not need to happen at this stage of the season. Already unfortunately we've seen it with TX Galaxy where they've let go of Dan Malisela, the coach who's really led the team. They've let go of Dan Malisela. We've seen it chopping and changing.
Yeah, he's gone over to Chipper.
He's gone over to Chipper at the moment. Chopping and changes of coaches will not work. Black Leopards nearly went down to the NFD. Black Leopards, as you know, they've changed coaches like nobody's business over the past few seasons. But you need your experienced players to come to the fore. That's what we saw with Black Leopards last season. The experienced players helped them get through the promotion playoffs. And that's what you need. You need a couple of players who've been there before that can carry you through.
On this first point, T-Man, can I just ask something? You speak about team culture, building the team culture. Senior players need to step up. I get from a TS Galaxy perspective, there is that culture because TS Galaxy were thriving in the Glad Africa Championship. They had won the Nedbank Cup. They were they had some sort of a structure, so that's great. But from a team like TTM, who essentially obviously took over from Bidvest, but then it looks like they were trying to recreate their own culture. Yes, they were in the Glad Africa Championship, but how do you do that? And maybe if because obviously we've seen Cape Town City do it successfully, but how do you manage to do that when everything is haphazard, everything is rushed, and you're trying to get players on because you're trying to go for the season? Because the thing about it is just putting a team on the field right now, and that's how it feels like from a TTM from my perspective. When I look at TTM, it's just we're trying to get through certain games. We've got the players, but we're just trying to see the end and see and eke out results. And yes, we'll win games and we will, because there'll be moments where players will be great. But how do you change that? Did they go about this the wrong way?
Well, one thing that I want to start with is the coach. The coach needs to make sure that he's motivating the players appropriately. The players need to. The main thing at this stage of the season is motivation. It's definitely possible to stay in the PSL. The PSL is very evenly matched. There's no front runner who's gonna put a gap. Or let me rather say, within the relegation zone and getting to the top 8, there isn't a clear gap. And that's what the coach has got to translate to his players and make them realize, make them see the white line. Look at what's happened at Kaizer Chiefs over the past few games. The players need to believe that it's possible to win one game, to win 2 games. That's 6 points, and that elevates you to the next level. So motivation is extremely important. That's why I mentioned about backroom, making sure that the finances and everything is in order, making sure that the players are paid. Those simple things. If need be, in the next international break, make sure that the players go out and go to the Royal Marang, go build a bit of team culture and make sure that the players are in their mind mentality is very, because a lot is going on at the moment in South Africa at the moment, and COVID-19 has an effect on everyone as a whole in the country and players as well. People are fighting for paychecks, people are fighting for their families at the moment, and if you can just players can just take a step back and just take them out and just make sure that the players' minds are at ease. And I think that's what you find is the problem at the moment, that players are kind of worried about their future. Players are playing and it's quite difficult when you're playing a couple of games and you're not sure as to, am I going to stay? Am I going to get a contract here? I've only got a 1-year contract. You play with nerves and you lose 2 games in a row, and then the motivation levels are down. Those are the important things at play over here, and that's what, unfortunately, sometimes it kills a team sometimes, and it's 2-3 losses in a row, and it's over for you, and that's what I kind of feel as though sometimes you need psychologists, sports psychologists, to come into teams and build the motivation levels, because in the PSL, if you've got the right coach who's feeding the players positivity week in, week out, you can turn your fortunes around. I've spoken to you before about not to say nothing negative about Gavin Hunt, but sometimes the way in which he conducts himself in the post-match interviews, it's not the best way to kind of elevate your players, because your players feed off the energy that you give as a coach. And I've seen Joel Masuta as well. He looks like a man who's defeated. And that's the kind of thing, that those small little simple things, that's the way you turn things around. Look at West Bromwich Albion. Sorry, to take it away, but look at a player like the effect that Big Sam has come in. Big Sam has come in and he's turned the fortunes around at West Bromwich Albion. A couple of games ago, you were losing by big results, and next game, you're drawing 1-1 with the champions being Liverpool. Sports psychology is so important, and I think that's what the teams at the bottom of the PSL need to realize. It's so close in the PSL, and that's the thing about the PSL. It's so close between the relegation zone and the top 8. 2 wins, you're right there.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, you are 100% correct. And I think when you look at a team like a TTM and guys at TS Galaxy, because they're new and some of the players are just there to ride out the COVID wave, and essentially feels like to me that it's like an audition for these guys. So they're not, as you said, they're individuals, so they're going to try and do everything that makes them look good, but they're not going to necessarily die for the team because they know that actually I'm going to get how many games in the PSL? 30 games. I'm going to get the 30 games, and that's going to give me enough to probably get me a contract somewhere else. And I think that's where I think the other newbie being Moroka Swallows, and we're going to move to we're going to segue into that. That's where it's different because Moroka Swallows has a lot of one-year contracts. There's quite a few one-year contracts happening at Moroka Swallows, but there's a bigger belief, there's a bigger dream happening at Moroka Swallows. They're not there to make up the numbers. They're not there to fight away for relegation. They're there to actually. It's kind of like this season they're reclaiming the pride that they were lost. I think one of my friends tweeted, "You can't if you're 35 and under, and how can you be 35 and under and support Moroka Swallows?" And the funny thing is, I remember that I'm under 35, and I remember that time. Lungisani Ndlela, Lefatsu Tsulupa, Gregi Tafia in goals. Moroka Swallows used to have a great history. They used to play some great football in the early 2000s, and and they never had the biggest stars. They've just always had guys who can always just keep on playing. And they always, I remember the one year, I think they had Dennis Lotta in their team the one year, and they did quite well. And for me, that's that. And obviously they also had Mamini Young at some point in time as well at Moroka Swallows. But for me, this season is reminding me of, for Moroka Swallows, it's a contrast between what you're saying in terms of teams need to believe and a team that is believing that something is possible. But it's also speaking about the veterans in the team. What TTM did was they kicked all the veterans out of that were coming from Wits. They told them that they didn't need their contracts because their contracts were split. And for one reason, Buhlebuyeza Mkhwanazi would have been a great addition to that team, a great help, a great spine, a guy who doesn't like losing, a guy who's won the league with a team that many people thought shouldn't have won the league. And so that's where I think the differences between the two. And now let's go to Moroka Swallows, because I think their season has been great. They've already gotten enough points to help them, and it's only a third of the way through the season. They lost Q1 by goal difference, which hurt me, to Sundowns, because I kind of felt, you know what, that initial 8 million Kickstarter would have been very nice for them, winning that Q1 innovation. But yeah, it is what it is.
Well, I love what you said there, where you said there's belief at Moroka Swallows and Mpho. You can tell the management have faith in the players and Mpho. They've got leadership in the form of Lebogang Mokoena, Cheese Boy Mpho, a wealth of experience. He came onto the scene as a youngster for Orlando Pirates, went on to play for Mamelodi Sundowns, then played for Ajax Cape Town, where he guided the youngsters at Ajax Cape Town at the time. He has a wealth of experience, the captain of the side. But they're led by, we spoke about Buya Mary last week for 20 seasons in the PSL. But they've got Hamilton, a player who's got a chip on his shoulder, who wants to excuse the pun, chip on his shoulder. The team that kicked him out was Chipper, but he's one of the standout players. I think he was the player. He was the player of the month.
Yeah, player of the month.
And then the coach of the month was actually the coach of.
So let me give you the stats. Yeah, let me give you the stats. So Razak Hamildine has scored 8 goals this season. He's 2 behind the number 1 marksman, which is Bradley Grobler. He's tied with Mshishi Tembazwane on 8 goals. This month he scored 5 goals in the matches they've played. And obviously Brendan Truter won coach of the season, coach of the month, not coach of the season. This month they've gone. So currently in the 5-game streak, they've won 3 games and they've drawn 2. They're gone unbeaten, which is something that is for a team coming from the Glad Championship. Yes, and the great thing I love about Swallows is that they got promotion outright. They didn't go through the playoffs where Black Leopards made it through, but they won it outright. And they're not here to joke around and play with the numbers and hang around the bottom half where you lose one game, you're in relegation, you win one game, you're out. They are up there. They're contesting for top 8, and it's as though they've never left. And that's what I love about it. It's like they've never left. It's like, oh no, Swallows is back.
Mpho, 100% Mpho. And as you've said, Mpho, you can see that the management, there's passion from the management, Mpho. You see Panyaza Lusufi tweeting week in, week out, showing the faith that he has in his players.
David Mokasha
tweeting week in, week out, having faith in his players.
Please.
Mpho, if there's one thing that I always say this, Mpho, as a player, Mpho, if you know that your management and your coach believe in you, Mpho, you feel invincible, Mpho, your confidence levels are high, Mpho, and that's what you've got at Moroka Swallows, Mpho. You know very well, Mpho, that there's the belief that we're not here for numbers here, Mpho. We know very well that there's belief going into next season already. They're planning beyond, Mpho. They're not planning short term, but there's long term plans for the club. But you can feel the vision from the management team. And when you're playing them, you're playing with pride. You're playing with pride knowing that I'm playing for one of Soweto Giants. Even though they're only coming from the Glad Africa Championship last season, where they got relegated this season. But as you said, they're playing as though it's a team that's not left the PSL. They're playing wonderful football. They're playing teams like Kaizer Chiefs, and they're not holding back. They're attacking teams like Kaizer Chiefs. And game fixture of the PSL.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about it. We've got a section for that.
Can I just say one thing, Mpho? And we bash TTM week in, week out, but Mpho, and I think that's just the contrast that we're seeing with them and Moroka Swallows, Mpho, is that there hasn't been that belief from the management team and the players, Mpho. There's chopping and changing week in, week out. You've got players like Buhle Mkwanazi, who could have, as you said, you could have been a starter for this team. He could have been the leader at the back. You've got Miguel Tim. 1 week is playing, 1 week is on the bench. What happened to Tosongele? He scored a brace on their first game of the season. All of a sudden, he's no longer playing anymore. So there's a lot of chopping and changing, and you're unsure as to what's really happening at TTM, and it's quite worrisome for the club, and I just feel that the chopping and changing it's rubbing off on the players, and the players are uncertain about their futures, and that's why you're seeing the lackluster performances from them.
But there's also another thing that we also need to consider throughout the league, and this is how we're going to end this. We're going to move over. Is obviously the COVID impact, because obviously some players aren't playing because of either contact tracing or being near someone or having
contact
COVID.
Tracing
but obviously in terms of
the
testing protocols, I'm assuming they do have protocols in terms of players, how players are, and so that's why squads are chopping and changing a lot. But moving over to the other teams in Soweto that haven't done really well, they've had contrasting fortunes. Pirates started very, very well, and this is what I want to talk about is Pirates, because I think we've spoken about Chiefs earlier on. But Pirates all of a sudden find themselves in sixth position, 2 points away from Kaizer Chiefs. In November, they swept Kaizer Chiefs to the floor in that MTN8 semi-finals.
5-0 on aggregate.
Yes, and they on paper, they are the best team assembled this season. Yes, you can fight me with Sundowns, and that's where we can argue. That's fine. And you, T-Man, said that this team's going to win the Premier League. We're 12 games in. They're 7th, 18 points after 12 games. What's going on, T-Man, at Orlando Pirates?
Mpho, thank you for reminding me, boys. Like earlier on in the season, Mpho, we looked at the signings made. We looked at their transfers made. Mpho, they had assembled the best squad. Mpho. They signed Zuka Manja from Wits. They signed Dion Hoto from Wits. They signed the Bafana captain, Chilani Hlaswayo, from Wits. They had former PSL player of the season within their metal, that's Timikosi Lodge. They had players such as Gabadino Mhango, top goal scorer last season, joint top goal scorer last season. They had a wealth of players. They signed Thabang Munara in the middle of the park. They bolstered many people. They strengthened in their weak areas. The goalkeeping area was one of their. Even though they had Wayne Sandilands, they just needed to strengthen in the goalkeeping department, and they did so by getting Richard Ofori from Maritzburg United. But their fortunes have not. Their fortunes have not been. They haven't found their fortune on the playing field. As of late, they've unfortunately not had the best of results as of late. They lost to Black Leopards 2-0 in Toyando on Sunday. As we say, it's always difficult to travel to Toyando.
That was so bad. And when you well, I'll tell you why I say it's bad, but just carry on.
And yesterday they drew against Golden Arrows and for a team like Orlando Pirates they are they've got the depth their bench is one of the best in the league you've got Wayne Sandilands. You can choose between Wayne Sandilands or Richard Ofori I was looking at the stats and I saw that Wayne Sandilands doesn't have many clean sheets this season. What is wrong at Orlando Pirates? Many people saw Thulani Hlaswayo as their golden signing. It hasn't translated so much. They've been conceding goals at the back. They haven't really played as well. They've done well up front. They've had very, very good attacking players. But in some games, as you've mentioned, they haven't really been able to find the back of the net. They've also been chopping and changing up front. Zakele Lepasa was starting in the beginning of the season. He wasn't finding his form. They put Gabadino Mhango back. He also isn't finding the back of the net. Tembi Kosi Launch is blowing hot and cold. So Orlando Pirates have really, really not found their form up front. And many players, many of their fans have been following social media. They're not really happy with Thulani Hlaswayo at the back.
That's what I don't get. I really don't get that.
We argue about. It's always difficult where you sign a top player and then you've got your captain, your club captain in the form of Happy Jele who's been performing as a standout performer for Orlando Pirates for a number of years. He also started out as a 19-year-old for Orlando Pirates, Happy Jele. And what happened is that Thulani Hlaswayo came in, and what happened with that signing was that as a result of getting Bafana's centre back, you had to relegate Jele to the bench, and unfortunately, that transition, maybe it's team chemistry. What we're seeing at Orlando Pirates, they haven't really found that team chemistry, and that's probably what's translated into their loss of form as of late.
No, but here's my thing. They started the season well. They were chasing the top of the log. They were winning games. They won the MTN8 so well, and the reason why they did that is that they were consistent. And here's my big thing about football is that you need to have a great foundation. Your back five is sacrosanct. It cannot change. But you can change your full backs due to injury and everything else, but you need to be settled there at the back. But the one important rule is your back three. Your two center halves and your keeper. They cannot change. They need to stay there for the season. If you start with Thulani Hlaswayo, you stick with Thulani Hlaswayo. There's no chopping and changing. What's happened over the past month since January is we're seeing Innocent Mayela playing centre back. You're seeing Happy Jele come back in, who hasn't started since November. You're seeing Tyson Hlaswayo. Everyone's angry. Why is everyone angry at Tyson? Guys, if you don't want Tyson, trust me, put him on the market now. He'll sign a pre-contract with somebody and he'll leave Orlando Pirates and he'll come back and haunt you. We've seen how great Tyson is over the seasons with Wits, and I don't understand why everyone's now starting to get angry. He wasn't. Look, I understand Happy Jele has been there for years. I get it. I get there's loyalty. I understand. But if I give you Tyson and Happy Jele to start for Orlando Pirates, definitely I'm taking Tyson Hlaswayo. I'm not taking Happy Jele. What Happy Jele gives me is cover due to injury, and that's the one thing that we're not too sure when it comes to Orlando Pirates is obviously these players are not injured. So is it a COVID thing that they're not playing? Because the other thing is, why is Sandilands playing when Richard Ofori is available? That's what I don't get. And those are the things that needs a little bit more communication across the league, is that they need to let us know if some players are sick due to COVID and they will be unavailable for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Because now, when I looked at the Leopards score, I changed the channel to see Pirates play Leopards, and I was like, oh, they're 2-0 down. Oh, wait, but why is Sandilands in goals? And then I'm like, what? Why is Innocent Mayela playing centre back? And for me, that's where the issue comes. And then the whole thing, like the other day, Wade Yoster got man of the match against TTM, but he doesn't start against. He had a great man of the match against TTM. He didn't have so much of a great game against Leopards, but then he doesn't start against yesterday. It was against
Golden Arrows.
Yes, but Wade Eustace's been performing throughout. He's been giving them that extra zip down the right-hand side. Bongani Sam had a great game against Golden Arrows, but where's Innocent Mayela? And so those are the questions we'd like to know from a Pirates perspective. Up front, they have issues. Zugamanja keeps on starting and he's not scoring goals. Gabadinho Mango hasn't been able to find his form. Vincent Pule's form seems to wane, but he's the guy who kind of, where the attack comes through. Zakele Lepasa in December was on fire. And Stellenbosch was running them ragged. January comes, Zakele Lepasa is not there. Is it a COVID issue? We don't know. Is it injury? They don't tell us. So those are the things that we need to, that I think across the league needs to get better. Than Cape Town City let us know which players got COVID, so we kind of understood that they won't be available, because that's what the season is. It's topsy-turvy. You're going to lose players, but it's no excuse for a team like Orlando Pirates, with the depth that they have, to not be in the top four and beating the teams that they face. Every time they come up against a team, it's a complete mismatch across the field. They are that good from a player personnel one-on-one. And that's the surprising, is I honestly do think that maybe, I know I'm always the one who's quick to go look at the coaches, but I'm also saying maybe it's a coaching thing. Maybe there's something that needs to change. Maybe there's because the other thing for me in a COVID season is that you need to know what your best 11 is. I don't think Zimbabwe knows his best 11. And that's sad coming into the middle of this. That's something, because the other thing is Sundowns used to do this. Sundowns would rotate, but I knew Pito deep down inside, if he needed a win, he knew what his best 11 was and he'd push it out. But obviously, because of the amount of games he was playing in Africa, he needed to chop and change here and there. And so with Pirates not having that many games, and yes, games are coming in thick and fast, and you need to rest players, you still need to try and give yourself a period in the game where you're playing your best 11, or you're giving your best, you're giving yourself the chance to win games, because you're now chasing the season. You're not being hunted, you're the hunter. And being the hunter, you need to put your best 11. You can't just now try and rotate, chop and change, because you're going to drop points because you're not at your most optimal. And also, if you haven't found your most optimal, you need to find your best 11 now. Because the season is running away from them. They are currently, it's 8 points behind the teams at the top, and that's something that they need to chase. That's 3 games. I understand Moroka Swallows, everyone's expecting them probably to go down, but Sundowns is not going to let up. Sundowns is going for this. They're going for the jugular, and as Orlando Pirates, with the squad that you have, if they don't come out with anything outside of the top 2 this season, I really would need to look at the coaching staff.
No. I hear you, Mpho. One thing that I agree with you, Mpho. When you start seeing out a proper wing back playing in the center back position, it really raises alarm bells for me. Especially when you know that you've got players like Ntegelele Nyauza, you've got players like Happy Jele, you've got players like Tachin Tatao to choose from, but you're playing players like Innocent Maela, a natural left back in the center back position, Mpho. Orlando Pirates, we cannot argue. They have the best players they have the best players at their disposal. They should be running away. They should be challenging Mamelodi Sundowns for the league title, and they're not at the moment. And I just think they also just need to kind of they need to exert their dominance. Find their starting 11, find their proper 11, and we can analyze and we can see who their proper 11 is. It's the likes of Vincent Mpho. They just need to find form. Tim Minkosi Lodge. But it's been a couple of injuries here and there, and I love what you said at the moment, Mpho, is that the PSL needs the teams need to bring a culture of honesty and transparency, and tell us as to what's going on in terms of COVID at the moment. Tell us and be honest with us up front, and tell us that for example, player X, player Y, and player Z are out due to COVID. We understand that fully. That's what I appreciate about international leagues like the EPL and our favorite, the NBA, whereby they give us full transparency. We know very well as to what's going on, such that we know very well that when you're playing a wing back in your centre back position, we understand that it's due to COVID.
And I think a lot of teams have been suffering under COVID, but we're just seeing 11s on the field, and we're asking yourself what's going on. And that's the thing. But like T-Man, let's look forward to the weekend. I think the weekend's going to give us some entertaining fixtures. I'm going to let you give me what you see, what you like, and there's some tasty ones there. But T-Man, what are you expecting this weekend?
I'm looking at the highlight of the weekend is definitely, without a doubt, it's Moroka Swallows up against Mamelodi Sundowns. You've got both Moroka Swallows stalwart players in the form of Vuyameri and Lebogang Mokoena have previously prived their trade for Mamelodi Sundowns. One thing that I love is that Lebogang Mokoena didn't have a good time at Mamelodi Sundowns. So he'll be looking to exert revenge. And what a great fixture. This is a game where Moroka Swallows, if Moroka Swallows can get a good result here, they're definitely going to put pressure on Mamelodi Sundowns, who've drawn their last two games. They've been playing hot and cold in their last two games. They really, they've hit the brakes a little bit on the league season. And this is a great time for Moroka Swallows to turn things around and add pressure to Mamelodi Sundowns.
And go clear, 3 points clear. That's all it is. That's what's at stake.
Exactly, it's a 6-pointer. There's so much for this fixture, and that I guess all our eyes will be on that game. Another game that I'm going to be look at closely is Maritzburg United up against Orlando Pirates. Middendorp really, he won against Kaizer Chiefs. He got a little bit of breathing space, but unfortunately he lost against TX. He lost it immediately. And that's put pressure on Maritzburg United again. They're back in 15th position. They really need a good result. Maritzburg United as well. They've got such a good array of players. They've got Nazir Ali, a stalwart also. He's also in their form. They've got Ali Mieza, who played for Mamelodi Sundowns as well. They've got such good players. They've got Dalen Klassen and also Keegan Buchanan as well. It's really, really good crop of players. And they shouldn't be in 15th position. And Mid-Ernst Middendorp, as much as we kind of teams have criticized him in the past, he has been a good PSL coach. He knows the PSL very, very well. He's been able to steer teams. He's been able to do well with your so-called smaller teams. And this is a brilliant fixture for him. Orlando Pirates, the confidence is low in Orlando Pirates. And this is a great fixture for him to turn things around for Maritzburg United. TTM Mpho. They're playing in SuperSport United. SuperSport United also had a rich vein of form. They found their form, but they drew in the Tshwane Derby. TTM Mpho, this is the fixture where they really need to get a result. Otherwise, as you said, the confidence is low there in TTM, there in Benda. They really need to turn their fortunes around. This is a big game for them. They really need to turn their things around. I'll take it to Stellenbosch. Kaizer Chiefs are heading to the Winelands. In Stellenbosch, they really need to kind of they've done so well in the past few fixtures. The youngsters, of course, Impilo Ngobo, Happy Mashiane. I loved when one thing that you've seen as of late is that Gavin Hunter's throwing his confidence into the youngsters. You're seeing a lot of the players like Lebogang Manyama coming off the bench. But I love the way Lebogang Manyama played yesterday. He played so well with the youngsters. When he came on, the score was 1-0. He combined very well with Happy Mashiane. Both of them scored goals. So this is a game where Kaizer Chiefs is the confidence is back at Kaizer Chiefs. Samir Nekovic, he's playing so well at the moment. I always mention he's the talisman in Kaizer Chiefs. He's not scoring goals, but he's really playing well up front for Kaizer Chiefs.
Says the man who said he was playing with the doctors and accountants in Serbia.
So he's so instrumental up front. That's the beautiful thing about Kaizer Chiefs at the moment. There's a blend of youth and experience in the form of Ramahle Mpahlela guiding the likes of Ngezana, the likes of Samuel Nekovic guiding the likes of Nkosipile Ngobo and Happy Mashiane, Lebogang Manyama guiding the likes of the youngsters. So this is a great fixture for Kaizer Chiefs. If they win, it'll take them up to 4th position. So it's a wonderful fixture for them to kind of continue their rich vein of form.
Yeah, so just to recap the fixtures, Mamelodi Sundowns versus Moroka Swallows. I think Sundowns has a lot to lose here in this game, and Swallows have everything to gain. It's very, very tricky for them, and the three wise men will have to do something. Next up is Black Leopards versus Chippa United. That's the relegation scrap, and whoever wins gets themselves further and further away from that dreaded line. Stellenbosch versus Kaizer Chiefs, another chance for Chiefs to get themselves back up to the top 4, setting themselves up for the derby in the next weekend. Baroka FC and Amazulu, another bottom of the table side, teams that one's doing quite well and another one in Amazulu trying to find their feet with Benny McCarthy. They will need a win soon to kind of get the wheels going.
Can I just jump in quickly there, Mpho? I really thought, Mpho, with Benny McCarthy and Thabang and Mpho coming in at Amazulu, it'll give Paramani Mazambi a chance to kind of find his form and find his confidence again, because one thing that I must say with Paramani Mazambi is that time is running out, because he really needs to find a couple of games so that he can make the Olympic squad, Mpho. Because what we want for Phakamani Mahlambi, both me and yourself, Mpho, and what we've said, Mpho, is that Phakamani Mahlambi needs to find his form and go to the Olympic Games where there's tons of scouts, so that he can go and find an overseas move and get his career back on track, Mpho, because he is a wonderful starlet, Mpho. What do Phakamani Mahlambi and Benny McCarthy have in common? They were both given their debuts at a very young age by Gavin Hunt as 17-year-olds. So I really thought that Phakamani would find his form under Benny McCarthy. Let me stop there. Let you.
It was the mummies in Egypt, but we'll leave it at that. Maritzburg United are playing Orlando Pirates on Saturday, as T-Man said. A nice one. The one thing for me with Maritzburg, I don't understand why they're playing so badly. They have such a great squad. I thought they'd be a top 8 contender, fighting for at least maybe even top 4 with the squad they have, but it just hasn't worked out. But so both teams needing a win, so that's going to be a very, very good one. And then on Sunday, Chakuma Matsivandila playing Supersport United. That one as well, Supersport United wanting to chase, keep up with the guys at the top, and Chakuma trying to get away from the bottom. And then a nice little 4-place 5, Cape Town City versus Golden Arrows. Arrows still one of the unbeaten teams, joining Mamelodi Sundowns and Moroka Swallows. They are a well-drilled team, properly. Proper structure. There, Mabuti Kenyas as the assistant coach, with Mandla Nkazi doing a great job there. Cape Town City, a little bit of a yo-yo season. They win one, they lose one, they win one, they lose one. They want some consistency now, with them having one midweek. And that win in Limpopo is going to be very important. So yeah, those are the fixtures. T-Man, one final words before we go.
For the PSL, one thing that we've seen this season, it's so evenly matched. You've got Mamelodi Sundowns running away, and it's so evenly matched there at the bottom, from the bottom spot to up until 8th, 7th. So it's so possible to turn your fortunes around in this game, in this PSL season. All you need to do is just find that right track record, find that rich vein of form, get the mind of your players right, get that mindset right. And that's all you need. And I think that's the glimmer of hope that still stands for teams like TS Galaxy and TTM. They really need to. And we've seen that with teams such as Maritzburg as well. So that if they can just find that 3 good fixtures, 3 good results on the trot, that could elevate them into the top positions.
My thing is, don't lose 2 in a row. Make sure you do not lose 2 in a row.
Exactly. Just one other thing, Kaizer Chiefs. One thing that I really want to kind of put forward in this PSL season. Put faith in youngsters. Put faith in youngsters. We really need to elevate the PSL youngsters. When we've seen Percy Tau, we've seen the likes of Banga Dizungu, we've seen the likes of Keegan Dolly, players playing abroad up front. And that's what I'm liking about Kaizer Chiefs at the moment. You're not seeing Itumele Nkune there. Who is Itumele Nkune? We don't know who he is at the moment. And that's good for our football. We want to see the next crop of players coming up. And I'm really, really glad to see Kaizer Chiefs doing well without their top players. I'm really loving the blend of youth and experience, the same way we've seen it at Moroka Swallows. And in the same way, you've got to put your faith in your experienced players, but you've also got to show the youngsters as well and bring them up as well.
But T-Man, as you know, I've said it before, it was a blessing in disguise. Gavin Hunt stumbled on this because of injuries. So that's where we'll probably end it today. Thank you very much for watching the Mzansi Soccer Show with myself and Thabang and Mpho. Please do join us next week as we take you through. The most important thing is, and I'll just show you the fixtures again. Please enjoy these fixtures this week and have a great time while doing so. Remember, you can still interact with us. Please follow us on these various platforms and do subscribe to our YouTube channel for more related content from myself and Thabang and Mpho. Enjoy the weekend of soccer from in the DSTV Premiership, and all we can say is, le sale, kakafiso.